Century Radio. I'm Dr. Zohara Hieronymus. Laura Kortner is our executive producer, and Anita Brockington, our engineer. Our guest this hour, Dr. Mike Dow, asks us to recall a time in our lives when we felt absolutely healthy, happy, confident, and free. Imagine, he asks next, quote, what your life would be like if you could live in that space, unquote. In his Hay House 2019 release, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life, he shares with readers, as he has thousands of television viewers and his own clients in L.A., that yes, with the use of cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation techniques, soundtracks, visualizations, and more, we can actually use the subconscious to reprogram our lives. We can use what Dow calls SVT, subconscious visualization technique, and create the life we want. As his own book cover says, your subconscious brain can change your life, quote, overcome obstacles, heal your body, and reach any goal, unquote. Whether as a core member of Dr. Mehmet Oz's crew of experts or on numerous television shows he appears on, like Rachel Ray just the other day, Mike, as he is known, can teach anyone, rather Dr. Mike, as he is known, can teach anyone how to speak to their unconscious brain and tap into your greatest gifts and resources. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mike.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, I interviewed thousands of people over the last, 35 years and have read thousands of books. And one of the things that really delights me about your work is that it's a synthesis of so many research directions from the past, including mesmerism and hypnosis. Tell us about your own path into wellness and healing, and specifically why hypnosis was of such interest.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting the way I sort of fell into hypnosis. You know, growing up, my brother was diagnosed after a major stroke with a very rare brain disease. He had a major stroke when he was just 10, and I sort of saw how the brain can heal itself. And my brother had sort of a near miraculous recovery, sort of astounding doctors, and I knew that I wanted to really help people to change their lives. I was primarily interested in the power of hope and the power of really believing in yourself, because I certainly know that that is one of the factors that helped my brother to heal. So, you know, I went into this field of psychotherapy and helping people to reach goals and mental illness. But, you know, it was interesting. I was using these very traditional hospital-based cognitive behavioral therapy skills, and they're effective, no doubt. They're very effective. And then one day, because I needed some continuing education for my license, and I'd taken just about every other training on the face of the planet, I found this clinical hypnosis training. And, you know, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to be that hypnotizable, and I just thought, oh, well, this would be interesting to learn about. Mm-hmm. And the first day I went into practicum, and we had to hypnotize each other as part of this 4-day, the beginning track training, and I went deep, so deep into this wondrous trance, and I knew in that moment, first of all, it wildly exceeded my expectations of what hypnosis can do for people, and I knew that I could start using it, and now I use it in my practice every single day. And, you know, this book, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life, is really helping what I do in my private practice and helping people, whether you're battling a phobia or a physical condition like pain or migraines or a digestive disorder like IBS. Cognitive behavioral therapy mixed with hypnosis and guided imagery, which is what I do in my protocol, can really help people to change their lives. So that's how I got into it.
It's fascinating because I remember studying Mesmer's work from the 19th century, and you even pointed out someone that many people don't know about, Dr. Herbert Spiegel, who in the 20th century went on to continue this work of the unconscious, and then his son has continued. But maybe we should all get on the same page terminology-wise to begin with. So I love the fact that you use the term subconscious instead of unconscious, and why?
Yes. Thanks for noticing that. So, you know, it's interesting. In the field of hypnosis, half of the doctors use the term subconscious and half use unconscious. Well, for me, I really thought about it, and I thought, you know, unconscious to me kind of feels like it's the opposite of being woke or enlightened, and that's certainly not what this is about, because if anything, this practice can be very deeply spiritual, and it can help to light up your prefrontal cortex. So it actually helps you to evolve and become a better human being. So I thought, well, unconscious doesn't really sound right to me, and unconscious can sometimes also mean sleeping. And, of course, in the front cover, you see my own brain scans, a SPECT scan and also an EEG of my brain. And we know that hypnosis is not sleeping. It's not that delta wave associated with deep dreamless sleep. It's actually the theta brain wave, which is what our brains exhibit when we are dreaming in those REM states. So it's actually somewhere in between being awake and being asleep, sort of in that dream state. So I like the word subconscious because it really encompasses and I think better describes what we're trying to use, these parts of the brain that light up. You can see the blood flow changing in my brain when I'm using my own technique, and you can see these brain waves in that EEG. So I just really like that word subconscious a bit better.
Well, and the use of the brain scans really helps somebody who may not appreciate how rich this work is and how much it can literally physiologically affect us, even to the point, as you point out, you can think about something during the day, let's say insomnia or how you're not sleeping, and then reprogram yourself to be able to overcome it. But before we get to that, one of the things you also point out is that we have this capacity to program ourselves because of our susceptibility to suggestion. Now, some people have always thought of suggestion as being, oh, well, that's what advertisers use and it's all negative. But shamanism, as Dr. Stanley Krippner, who's joined me on and off over the decades, always points out, is really based in our ability to respond to somebody else's suggestion. And you have turned this on its head and said, how about our own suggestions?
Yes. And wouldn't that be so wonderful? Instead of taking all of these advertiser suggestions that are telling us that you can only be happy if you own this new item or something like that, what if you could give yourself these suggestions? We know that the brain is highly suggestible. I mean, we know that the placebo effect, for example, works because, the placebo effect isn't a bad thing. Imagine if we could sort of use these suggestions, and then really use them to create these mantras or these statements of beliefs of whatever you want, like I know that I'm getting better and better each and every way and each and every day. And we also know that once you activate the subconscious is highly suggestible. Mm-hmm. So we know that once people are in this state of trance, they are much more likely to believe the suggestions that they hear versus when their brain is in a conscious state. So imagine that. You can really plant these suggestions, and they can be really health-affirming, positive ones that can help you to create that life that you want or the health that you want.
Right, and we will get to, not right this portion of the program, but in a little bit, actually showing as you do the readers and your clients and your TV viewers that there is a process that we can use to relax ourselves, to make ourselves open to these positive affirmations and suggestions, which then reprogram the subconscious. I mean, you've made it something that actually can be very complicated, and therapist and therapy can sometimes seem like such a long haul and so daunting and not necessarily productive. And what I like about the work, Dr. Mike, that you've done is that you've given people the tools to enrich their own life therapeutically. And it's not to say you don't, keep seeing your doctors and you don't see your therapist or you don't seek medical help if you need it. But in general, you've taken what used to just sort of be new age jingo lingo of, visualize yourself well, to turning the science on it so that we can see what the science looks like. And that's why I'm so deeply grateful you took the time to do the brain scans. How do general other people in the medical field respond to what you show as a result of these medical scans?
I think they're really starting to come around, and I think as a whole in this country, they sort of, hypnosis was very popular up until the 60s and the 70s, and then it kind of fell out of favor, and cognitive behavioral therapy sort of took its place for the most part. There were still some doctors who were still using hypnosis, but not nearly as many as in decades past. And, I think what's really interesting, and I think, my brain scans in my book is part of this. In the past, 5 to 7 years, there's this renaissance. And, the New York Times has done countless articles in the past 5 years. And a lot of these articles are because of the brain scans, because a lot of people who have an idea that, when you say hypnosis, for example, you think of Vegas. And, the first question people who aren't in the field say is, are you going to make me bark like a dog?
Right.
Are you going to brainwash me? There's all these old misconceptions about hypnosis.
Kreskin, wasn't it the amazing Kreskin? Wasn't that his name?
Yes.
I actually went to a party when I was 13 where he came and performed, and I became a chicken, I think. I'm very susceptible.
Yeah, and you can, and I say, when people say, well, what do you think about that? And I say, well, I think those shows are an example of just how powerful your subconscious can be. But instead of using it to embarrass you, which I would never do, imagine if we could use that same suggestibility, and you are somebody who is dealing with migraines, and we know that, for example, that this work is more effective than prescription medication. Imagine if you could use your mind to heal your brain or heal your body. So I think that the medical community is really coming around, and they're seeing the research, and they're saying, there's really something here. And in the last, I was just at another training up in Seattle. I go to all these conferences now because I just can't get my hands on enough research. And now the conferences are full, and there are just so many doctors flying in from all over the world now to be at these conferences because of this new research.
Yeah, and then there's also a whole other beautiful level, which we won't really go into tonight, but groups can do this for the earth and for other living, sentient, and life systems. I mean, I believe we can actually do this to come into rapport with the earth and her systems. But we'll start with just ourselves. Most of us, myself included, have enough material there to work on I'm 65 and I'm going, oh, great, I'm revisiting things now that happened when I was 3. Is this what you do in your 60s? Anyway, you also talk about mindfulness, and I think it's important because people use these words sometimes very loosely. Everybody doesn't mean the same thing. What do you mean, Dr. Mike, by mindfulness?
Well, I love mindfulness because, the definition that I use is paying attention in a particular way to what you are doing right here and right now. And you're doing that on purpose. So, what's really interesting is that mindfulness can be applied to all sorts of things. You can wash the dishes mindfully. You can take a shower mindfully. And, in my technique, instead of, because I've studied a lot of mindfulness meditation protocols, I've studied a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, I've studied a lot of hypnosis. So, what I do is I put them all together in this really tidy 7-step process called subconscious visualization technique. And in the beginning, you're going to start slowing your brain waves down. So when you're worried, an EEG would show these really fast beta brain waves. And then your brain can slow down with meditation, which is associated with alpha brain waves, which are slower, but they're still a conscious brain wave. You're just in a sort of relaxed conscious state. And then gradually I take people down into theta by using some hypnosis techniques. So it's kind of weaving all of these protocols and these tools that we know work independently together. And I really like that because a lot of people who say, oh, I'm not hypnotizable, the problem is they use these really, they're called inductions, right? So to get into trance, some of them are very quick, and if you don't get there quickly, if your brain has trouble slowing down, then it creates the state that you might say to yourself, well, I'm not hypnotizable. My protocol actually sort of lulls you down and gradually slows you down. And before I start to use any sort of hypnosis, I'm using mindfulness meditation to slow the brain down from worry. And then I have you, for example, go down an elevator and start to activate the subconscious. So it's more of a process, and I think what I found when I used to use very strict hypnosis techniques versus the one that I developed, I have a greater success rate, especially with people who say that I have trouble being hypnotized because of this gradual activation of the subconscious and a gradual slowing of the brain waves, which I think is really exciting.
It's also, you don't have to become a Zen Buddhist or a monk or, go into silence for a month. You can literally lay down in your bed or sit in a chair and visualize yourself going down the elevator or going down steps, and this slow process of going one step at a time. You really do. I mean, I practiced it a couple of times after reading your book because I wanted to see, well, does it work? And I can say it works, and I'm just a reader.
I'm so glad.
I think that's why I said I think you've done something extremely special, which is to bring so many different people's work together and so many generations of understanding that we really do have this capacity to change the way we live, to change our health, and that oftentimes, as you've shown, we can create miracles, not just for ourselves, but for the world. If you're just tuning in, our guest is Dr. Mike Dow. His most recent Hay House 2019 book is entitled Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life. Overcome obstacles, heal your body, and reach any goal with a revolutionary technique. You can learn more at his website, www.drmikedow.com. And remember, all of our guests are archived and their links are right at 21st21st, centuryradio.com, and at zoharaonline.com. And we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Zoe Hieronymus, inviting you to read my new book, White Spirit Animals, Prophets of Change. Explore the power and wisdom of sacred white spirit animals, which are held sacred by indigenous cultures and are part of shamanic traditions worldwide. The white spirit bear, lion, elephant, wolf, and buffalo are apex guardians of complex ecosystems. Learn why they must all be protected and what wisdom teachings they share. Discover how dream telepathy with nature, animals, and each other can be used for positive transformation in the world today. Read White Spirit Animals, Prophets of Change, and find more online at www.whitespiritanimals.com. That's www.whitespiritanimals.com.
You're listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Zohara Hieronymus, and I'm Sandy Newbigging, the best-selling author of Mind Detox. Discover and resolve the root causes of chronic conditions and persistent problems, and move on to live unlimited and free. If you want to find out more and read my book, please go to my website, www.sandynewbigging.com.
Another excellent book that we shared recently, Mind Detox. If you're just joining us, Dr. Mike Dow is with us. I'm sure many of you have seen him on television shows like Dr. Mehmet Oz, Rachel Ray, and many others. His current book, a Hay House 219 release entitled, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life. Overcome obstacles, heal your body, and reach any goal with a revolutionary technique. All right, so now getting down to methodology. You point out, and we've discussed all these kinds of things for decades here, that the rational left brain and the subconscious intuitive right brain are going to work in tandem. And so basically you have the rational mind helping the individual discern what it is they want to change, and then you have techniques to allow the unconscious right hemisphere to actually make those changes. Is that a simple way to put it?
Yeah, I think that's very simple and very accurate. You know, step one of the 7 steps of my technique is really using CBT and cognitive behavioral therapy to consciously assess what needs to change in your mind. And then we know that in EEG studies, once you start to use hypnosis, the activity shifts over to that right side of the brain, which is associated with more subconscious activation. So the other steps, most of the protocol is using mostly that right hemisphere, where that intuition, where that subconscious is really working and firing on all cylinders.
All right, so you start with showing us that most of us as humans have pitfall thought patterns, and we can experience 1, 2, 3, or all of them to greater or lesser degrees, and you suggest that once we become aware of the ones that get us the most, that we can begin to change them. And you've also already shown us and talked a little bit about how brain scans can even show this when parts of the brain are activated and deactivated. Can you take some time to talk about these 7 pitfalls before we talk about your subconscious visualization techniques method?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people, once they hear the pitfall thought patterns, they'll start to say, oh, that's the one that I struggle with, you know, and they all begin with the letter P, so they're very easy for people to remember. So the first one is paralysis by analysis. That's that rumination, like your thoughts being a broken record that you just can't shift. The second is permanence, when we feel like a bad time today, whether it's a physical condition or, let's say, a transition like a divorce, and the sadness or the anger is going to last forever. The third is personalization, where when something goes wrong, you're always putting the blame back on yourself. The fourth is pervasiveness. This is that kind of mistake in thinking, or a less than optimal way of thinking, where you allow something in your life that's specific to globally affect everything in your life. So if you're struggling at work, now you're letting it affect your social life and you're canceling those plans. Number 5 is pessimism. Any of that negative thinking, any of that catastrophic worst-case scenario thinking, this goes under that umbrella. Polarized thinking, which is that black or white thinking that sets people up for disappointment. A lot of perfectionists, people with anxiety, have a lot of polarized type thinking. And number 7, psychic thinking. This can go two ways. So either you expect other people to read your mind, and you assume that they're psychic, or vice versa, and you expect people to, without you verbalizing or without them verbalizing, you're reading their minds. And we can really start to see how, in traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, we'd label this and we would sort of talk back to it. So if there's a pessimistic thought that says, if it's that catastrophic negative thinking, looking at, let's say you're giving a presentation at work tomorrow, and you have that thought, oh gosh, what if I just blow this and I embarrass myself and then I get fired and then I can't afford my rent or my mortgage? You can kind of notice when that catastrophic negative thinking sort of takes hold.
Because you cascade down from the specific
to and
everything
that can really
following
make people
it.
anxious. And
I do that.
CBT,
I have to admit, I do
too.
that. Well, and I was thinking to myself when I was reading all these things, I won't give myself away on all of them, though the audience knows me pretty well after 30-plus years of listening to me occasionally talk about myself. But pessimism is a challenge now worldwide. We have a lot of people talking about this sort of subconscious, some people call it unconscious doom and gloom about the planet and the catastrophism that is very seemingly upon us, even young children with the school shootings who, are afraid to go to school. There's so many reasons now for people to experience that. But you point out that even it isn't real. We're projecting all kinds of things into the future, and we don't know what kind of interventions we might be capable of.
That's right, and it prevents us from taking that action, fueled with optimism and hope that we could actually be the change that this world needs. And you're right. I mean, studies have shown that we are becoming more and more negative because of everything that we're seeing in the news and all of the anger and all of this, polarization in our world and what's going on with our planet. But I think it's really important that we allow ourselves to stay healthy and whole, because we know that when you're in that constant state of fight or flight, which, by the way, is the opposite of what my technique does. At a very basic level, I was at a conference with my buddy Joe Mercola, who probably a lot of people know.
I've interviewed Joe years ago.
Yeah, and he'd never been hypnotized before, and he said. And I was explaining to him, at a very basic level, hypnosis is just shifting your body and your brain from fight or flight down into rest and digest. And he said, oh, that's what hypnosis is? And then I hypnotized him, and he's a huge fan of it now, and he endorsed my book and recommends it on his website because he was so impressed by it. But, we know that when you're in that state of fight or flight, because you're watching all the, cable news all day, that depresses your immune system, that is wreaking havoc on your physical health.
Yeah. I was a newscaster for a decade every day of the week, and it just destroyed me. Truthfully, by the end of a decade, I could barely speak. I was just ill from it, for good reason.
I'm not surprised, because it's that if it bleeds, it leads
it was just,
motto, right? It can be really harmful to our health, both mental and physical.
So when you then look at any of these: paralysis by analysis, permanence, personalization, pervasiveness, pessimism, polarization, psychic thinking, and you pick one or two or three out that are your primary things, then what do you do? Well,
then step 2 is the fun part. So then we activate the subconscious brain. So again, it starts with a little bit of mindfulness. So now this is when you, instead of, consciously labeling, now it's time to close your eyes and sort of get into this practice. And of course, my book comes with the written scripts, but also a link so that you can actually just listen to my voice with some music taking you through this journey. So step 2 is going to activate your subconscious brain, starting with some mindfulness and then taking you down an elevator or an escalator or some other visual that I have that will start to really highlight and activate the subconscious brain and get you into that state of trance. And then here's where the connection really takes place for most people. Then I have people go back into their past, and I have them visualize things, and I have them see things in their past that help them to understand where the pitfall thought patterns come from. And, I find that to be far more effective than traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, where you're just talking back to your conscious thoughts, if you can see yourself and you can see that time in your life when you were 7 years old and what was going on in your family, and you can see how you developed this pessimistic thinking, I think that really helps people to change in a much more profound way, is what I found.
Well, you know, there's such a huge difference between visualization and talking. You know, they use,
Absolutely.
as you point out, different parts of the brain. So we're using the right hemisphere more with the visualization, and so it helps us access a more integrated whole, which also I think speaks more to the soul than the body. But so, all right, so when we go on and we learn how to do this relaxation technique, you comment that the subconscious visualization technique, it boosts mood, and then you have a step for what we're actually going to do, considering the conscious, activating the subconscious. Can you walk us through that a bit, and then maybe we can take a break and come back and maybe do maybe a guided visualization for our listeners,
Sure.
if you don't mind. But if anybody's driving,
absolutely.
you need to stop. You can't do this and be driving at the same time, so you'll need to pull over after the commercial break. All right, so SVT for boosting mood, and then all these things that we're going to do using it.
So after step 3, after you go into the past, now step 4 is enhancing your present. So let's say you're somebody struggling with migraines or IBS, or somebody struggling with
let's do insomnia, because I suffer from it currently with hyperthyroid, as do many other people.
So now we're going to have you visualize your present life. So now you maybe see what happened in the past that helped you, that really set you up for some of these conditions. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to really enhance your present. You're going to see your present life. You're going to see, I always say that the subconscious has a paintbrush. So you are painting pictures, images, memories, visualizing things with your mind's eye versus a conscious way. Your conscious brain has a pen. Mm-hmm. You're going to think in words and sentences. And we've found that in creating deep change, that visualization tends to be more effective. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see, let's say, insomnia and your struggles. You're going to see all of the things that you do tonight, today, to take care of yourself, and give yourself credit for that. Then you're going to move into step 5, creating that future. You're going to see all of the things that you can do tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And then here's the really fun part. Step 6 is planting positivity. So remember earlier in the show we were talking about how the subconscious is more suggestible than the conscious brain. Right. So now you're going to hear affirmations. You're going to hear things from me like getting to bed and falling asleep will become easier and easier each and every night. And sometimes I repeat those. If you're somebody with migraines, I'll say something like, you will notice deep relaxation, and you'll be surprised to notice how many times you will feel that relaxation and warmth just automatically flowing around your head whenever you feel stressed. And you sort of plant these. It's sort of like, it's sort of the same thing as the placebo effect, but giving yourself positive suggestions. And then you build a bridge. So and I give people an anchor. I give people something, a little button on their right hand, imagining that all of the lessons or an aha moment or a visualization, a scene that you saw from your life that is helpful, or maybe it's a feeling, that it's going to be installed in a button on your dominant index finger, and then anything negative that you're still holding, maybe it's physical tension or emotional anxiety, that's going to float away. You're going to visualize a balloon that's going to take all of that away. And that's it. That's a 7-step process. Obviously it can be really personalized for people depending on what they're struggling with, but I have found it to be so effective not only for psychological but also for physical.
Well, and I think that, I remember interviewing the Symingtons, decades ago, about visualization.
Incredible work.
Yeah, and recovering and surviving cancer. And, some of the early work back in the 80s anyway, when people were beginning to really appreciate what the ancients had always told us and had always practiced in their own lives, that, as they say, become the change you want to see in the world, or see yourself the way you want others to see you. I mean, there's so many little things we've all heard since we were children. And then as serious researchers, quantum physics, from my vantage point, has done so much to reveal this entanglement that happens between us, and why even if I can heal myself, then I help my neighborhood. Even the studies in happiness, that one person who's happy in a building affects the happiness of the whole building.
Absolutely. I always tell the parents that I treat, if you want your children to be happy, the greatest gift that you can give your children is to figure out how you yourself can be happy, because it's contagious, isn't it?
Amen.
It's absolutely contagious.
Yeah, it truly is, as are the opposites of being depressed and moody and gloomy and pessimistic and not helpful. Doesn't help children around you either. So look, we're going to take a little break. When we come back, I think it would be good for the audience to experience a little bit of the visualization technique that you help everybody do, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other kinds of tools you use and why entrainment is helpful. And, we've talked about the HemiSync and other kinds of regulator technologies over the decades, but I'd like to hear your take on where things are at. If you're just joining us, Dr. Mike Dow is with us. Like I said, you've probably seen him on either Dr. Mehmet Oz's show, who used to join me before he became very famous. You see, I go way back. Before the people got famous, they used to come on my show. DrMikeDowell.com. Your subconscious brain can change your life, overcome obstacles, heal your body, and reach any goal with a revolutionary technique. And it's right there. Go to www.drmikeDowell.com and come back with us and learn a little more.
Hey, this is Sarah Stanford Seidelman. I'm the author of Swimming with Elephants, and you can learn more about my work, including soul retrieval and spirit animals, at followyourfeelgood.com. You are listening to 21st Century Radio with Dr. Zohara Hieronymus.
Indeed, Swimming with Elephants. What a remarkable, beautiful memoir. If you're just joining us, Dr. Mike Dow is with us. His recent Hay House 2019 release, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life, Overcome Obstacles, Heal Your Body, and Reach Any Goal with a Revolutionary Technique. And I highly recommend you all get a copy of this book if you are seriously working on any issues in your life that you'd like to resolve. And Mike, as I joke, now that I'm 65, I have all the time in the world to, get well. It's wonderful. It's actually this is the first time in 18 years I'm not writing a book. So it's been really wonderful to read books like yours and put them to work. So I thought it would be helpful for our audience to experience a little bit of your subconscious visualization technique. So anybody driving, you need to pull over if you're going to do it. And to everybody else listening, enjoy.
So, and how long do you think we have here? Maybe 5 minutes or so?
That's fine. Sure, that would be great.
Okay? All right, wonderful. So, as she said, please pull over and find yourself in a comfortable position. It can be lying down. It can be in a comfortable chair. And you can begin with some mindfulness. And you can just center yourself by noticing what's on your mind. And it may be helpful to see those thoughts, and I don't know what you see in your thought stream. Perhaps there's something you learned on today's show, knowing how polarization or pessimistic thinking or paralysis by analysis, how these thought patterns can take you away from optimum wellness. And perhaps you can even be mindful of any of the thought patterns that you're seeing right here and right now. And then you can ground yourself with a little more mindfulness. And I wonder if you can center yourself simply by noticing 3 sounds that you are hearing and being brought to you courtesy of the ears, beginning with the loudest sound you can hear, and then finding a medium sound. And now, what is the quietest sound you can perceive at this moment, I wonder? And isn't it so lovely, and isn't it so nice to know that being mindful of what you're experiencing in the right here and right now is already beginning to slow your brain waves down into relaxed alpha brain waves associated with meditation and deep states of relaxation. And now, seeing if you can pay attention to, right here and right now, 2 smells, or perhaps even the lack of smell in whatever room, whatever place you may be. And now, if the eyes are closed, leave them closed, and if they're open, you can allow the eyelids to become heavy now. And now find one color directly in front of you, and you can relax the eyes, and you can also find a color on the back of the eyelids. Now allowing the eyes to close. And now on the next inhale, roll the eyeballs, but keep the eyelids closed. Up, up, up. And there, up there, see a color there at the crown of your head. Hold the breath. Hold, hold, hold. And now exhale and let the eyeballs float down, keeping the eyelids closed. That's right. That's right. Perfect. And now see yourself on an elevator stepping in with your left foot and your right foot. And now I'm going to take you down 12 floors. 12. Feeling the elevator move down now. That's right. 11. Deeper and deeper. That's right. 10. 9. 8. 7. Deeply, deeply calm. 6, halfway down now. You're doing so wonderfully already, and you've only just begun. 5, 4. I don't know when, but at some point in this practice, you may now begin to feel a slightly dreamy quality begin to take over mind and body. That's right. 3, almost there. 2, deeply, deeply calm. 1. And now, stepping out of that elevator, isn't it so interesting that you can use the paintbrush of your mind's eye and now floating back in time to a memory where you were profoundly peaceful, happy, or physically comfortable, anything that you would like to picture and visualize for yourself. And I want you to see if you can take that memory and the feelings there, and really paint it with all of your 5 senses. What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What do you hear? Who do you see? And, of course, what does that feel like? And now imagine that you have a dial for whatever positive emotion or feeling state. Now turn that dial all the way up. If you dare, you can turn that dial up as much as you can take it. And isn't it so nice to know that you can create these positive healing states using the power of the mind, and now floating forward to present day. And you can visualize yourself as a tree. And I wonder what roots you can see, the roots of your life, of your past, the roots of the things that ground you. And isn't it so interesting that trees go through many seasons, and sometimes trees lose their leaves in the winter? And I wonder what that winter was for you. But now, in your present-day life, can you see yourself as this beautiful tree, and can you see the leaves beginning to grow from the branches of your beautiful trunk? And can you see the flowers? And isn't it so incredible, and isn't it also so wonderful to know that some of the winters that you have gone through have allowed this beautiful spring, this blossoming to be possible? That's right. And now moving into your future. And now you're going to see a crystal ball in front of you, and this crystal ball is going to show you something. This crystal ball is now clouding. As I count backwards from 5 to 1, the cloudiness will disappear, and you will see one thing, at least one thing, perhaps more. Some people find 5 things, and as I count backwards, you're going to see something wonderful, an image that will motivate you, something in your life that is yours to create. It could be health or wealth or peace, calm. That crystal ball is now clearing up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do you see? And isn't it so wonderful to know that each baby step in your life, everything that you do in your today and your tomorrow can help you to manifest whatever it is that you saw in that crystal ball of yours. And now deepening one more time as I count backwards from 5 to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Allowing these affirmations to be planted deep into your suggestible subconscious. My mind-body knows how to heal itself. My mind-body knows how to heal itself. My mind-body knows how to heal itself. I know how to remain peaceful. I know how to remain peaceful. I know how to remain peaceful. I know how to cultivate happiness. I know how to cultivate happiness. I know how to cultivate happiness. And now in your mind's eye, see one more statement, one more affirmation that you would like to plant in your own subconscious just for you, reciting it silently to yourself 3 times. That's right. That's right. Perfect. And I'm sure there was one or perhaps three things that you gained from our practice today. Imagine that you can see them now, visualizing them in your dominant hand, and give that dominant hand a squeeze, making a fist. And in the future, whenever you need to be reminded of your strength or your courage or your grace or your peace, all you need to do is squeeze that fist again. That's right. Isn't it so nice to know that you have the ability to heal yourself? And there, that elevator that brought you here is there, ready to take you back up to your waking life. Stepping into that elevator with your right and your left foot. That's right. Now pushing the number 12, and you become twice as alert and awake and rejuvenated on every floor. 2, 3, feeling awake and alert. 4, 5, 6, almost there, halfway there now. 7, 8, 9. You're doing so wonderfully already. You're almost there, fully awake and alert. 10, 11, eyes open on 12. And I hope all of your listeners got some sort of mini subconscious activation, and also saw how there at the beginning of the practice, how it helped to integrate some of those cognitive behavioral sort of pitfall mind thought patterns, and also that mindfulness. So hopefully everyone got a little taste. And, of course, the tracks in the book are much longer. They're 30 to 40 minutes. You know, we just did that little mini practice. But hopefully people now, especially people who've never used hypnosis before, now can have a little taste of what that may feel like or sound like.
Thank you so much. That was beautifully done, Dr. Mike. And, you know, again, I think there is so much misinformation, and there has been so much, I'd even say derogatory literature over the last 30 years about practices like this, but now I'm glad to hear, and the fact that you've used the scientific tools as well to show the actual literal changes in your brain while you do these things. Hopefully we are going to get past that kind of diminishment of the power of each individual. You know, there are a lot of ways to talk about individual empowerment, but this is actually a technique and a tool that if one does repeatedly, it obviously will help.
It really will, and we know, I cite a lot of studies in the book, and we know that you can actually boost your white blood cells. There was a study done at the Ohio State University Department of Psychiatry, and the medical students who participated in the study, the half of them who learned this technique of self-hypnosis, they did blood tests on them, and during this very stressful time in their journey becoming doctors, they found that the people who used self-hypnosis had white blood cell counts that went up, and the other half that did not had white blood cell counts that went down. Mm-hmm. So we know that this is actually validated by hard science, and I think it's really wonderful that there's a lot of research really supporting these techniques, this technique and techniques like it.
Well, and it makes so much sense. I mean, I used to say to people, we can all understand an architect and how an architect works from an idea, and then they do the drawing, and then they describe it, and then people come and build it, but that's literally how we go from nothing to something of everything that manifests in the world, whether it's a personal or a global, whether we're building a house or we're planting billions of trees. I mean, all these things start as a thought and then an image, and then the image is what we impress into matter, like filling a cookie mold. So I just love that you've taken it to a level that enables each person to really use this, and it's not just something that you have to read 1,000 books about. I mean, that's the beautiful thing for me at this time in our evolution, that there have been enough centuries and enough decades of people focused on self-development in the way that elevates the world. We're not talking about, I'm just going to take care of myself and that's it. We're talking about getting well so we can be of greater service in our lives.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and it's a really exciting time, and we all have that ability to do that for ourselves, and that's the most exciting thing, isn't it?
I believe so, and I do want to say, is there such a thing as an optimistic pessimist? Because I was thinking about, now people are going, so you're a pessimist. Well, I'm really not pessimistic in the normal sense of the word of everything's horrible and nothing's going to improve. I'm an optimistic pessimist. I mean, I think we have to go through a lot of challenges, and we're going to come out on the upside of it as a humanity. Just question of how.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there is such a thing. And I think a lot of us have this light inside of us, this optimism.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, some of the things that we experience or some of the things that we see can sort of pull us to that other side. So I think it's and by the way, some part of pessimism, a little hint of it is actually healthy. I mean, we want to be able to consider.
Yes.
We don't want to be Pollyanna and blind to real-life consequences. But I think I would say that most people walking around the planet in 2019 really need to go the other direction, in the direction of belief and optimism, especially with everything going on in our planet right now.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, the 7 or 8 minutes of your journeying with everybody, contrasting that to what normally you listen to on radio and television. And
oh yeah,
so
tragic. Day, isn't it?
It is, and that's the thing that so disappoints me. I have a Facebook once for a few days to follow my husband's Facebook. I got off that real fast. I just don't understand a lot of what's going on in our culture, to be quite frank. But I do appreciate your work. We didn't really get to the audio-visual stuff and the hemisyncs and the brainwaves, but we have about a minute or so left. What else would you like to share with us I've not touched on or asked you to share?
Well, there is, that audiovisual entrainment device is incredibly effective. You can see a picture of it on my website, drmikedow.com, which can really enhance this. I use that a lot in my practice. And I think the takeaway here is, all of the studies in this book, whether you're using this technique to heal a physical condition or a psychological one, I think we all have so much in us, so much untapped potential. And most of the information that we perceive in this world is not on a conscious level. It's in the subconscious. It's perceived on a subconscious level. So imagine what you could do if you could actually use the subconscious, not just every night when you're dreaming, but use it in a very intentional way, which is what you can do with this technique. In my book, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life.
It's beautiful. It's kind of like having the wizard inside of you and then say, hey, wizard, let's get to work. Wave your wand.
That's right.
Thank you so much for being with us. What a pleasure. Dr. Mike Dow, again, go to drmikedow.com. His book, Your Subconscious Brain Can Change Your Life.
Stay connected with stimulating talk and breaking news on Talk Radio 680 WCBM, Baltimore, and WCBM.com.